This episode is proudly supported by Westholme Australian Wagyu. Here's Stephen Sinclair from Jackson's on George.
In general, Westholme, I use several items on the menu from them. I always look to source products for their flavour. And with Westholme, I think they deliver that 100%. Australian Wagyu, in particular, Westholme is world class. Westholme is recognised for their quality all over the world. And then that's why, and when I tried it, and I absolutely love the flavour. This is, why I decided to put them on the menu.
Westholme believe that when nature leads, flavour follows. Learn more at westholme.com.
So once you open the door to the first bar, well, that's going to open you up all the possibilities for the next one and then the next one after that. And you'll look back, 15 years later, and you'll be in your office, which you never believed that you would have. And you'll be talking on a podcast.
Hey there, everybody. It is Dani Valent here with you for another episode of Dirty Linen, going across the Deep in the Weeds Food Podcast Network. We have listeners all around the world, so no matter where you are listening, I am super grateful for your attention. Do not take that for granted. We are going to dive into the world of drinks today. I've been looking at the world's 50 best bars announcements that have come out recently and getting very thirsty, thinking about what kind of slinky outfit I might put on to go into one of these fantastic bars, it's a really great list. Today we are chatting to Jeremy Blackmore, who is from Mucho Group in Sydney, and Jeremy's one of Jeremy's bars has been anointed on the 50 to 100 list in the 50 best. There's 50s, there's 100s, but all we know is that there are good bars all around the world, and it is great to have Jeremy on the show. Welcome.
Thank you so much. So great to be here.
Yeah, so good to have you on the show. Give us a little intro to Mucho Group. Who's involved? What's your role? Tell us about the bars.
Well, there's three of us that make up Mucho. There's myself and my business partners, Alex and Daisy, and we're now almost 15 years into running this business, and we have 5 bars. So we've got Tio's in Surrey Hills up here in Sydney, as well as a nightclub called the Cliff Dive. We've got a small bar called Cantina, OK, which got onto came 96th this year in the world in the top 100. We've got a little martini bar in Enmore, and our latest bar called Centro 86 is a margarita bar in the centre of the city. So, yeah, that's kind of the potted version of us.
So Cantina OK is the one that was given the gong recently. Let's learn a little bit more about that one and tell us why you think it got got the gong.
Well, Cantina OK, we've been very lucky in that tiny little space. We actually had come back to that space after years. So we took, both Alex, myself and Daisy, took a bit of time off opening new venues for about 5 years. We had 4 kids between the three of us, and we spent a bit of time just keeping our businesses going, and then we kind of came back with a head full of ideas, and we opened Cantina OK in a 20 square metre single car garage in the centre of Sydney. It was a pretty fun, low risk, silly thing to do, but it's been an amazing kind of journey to get up there with some of these other best bars in the world. We peaked a few years ago at number 28 in the world. And we're just so happy to be a part of what's an amazing list, especially with the other Australian bars, the other 4 Australian bars that are on that list this year as well, which is super exciting for us here.
It's pretty incredible. Like Caretaker's Cottage and Birdie in Melbourne were also on the list, and maybe Sammy in Sydney. Have I got them all? Is that what I'm forgetting?
There's one more above board in Melbourne as well, came number 100 this year. Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah.
Like, why do you think Australian bars are just sprinkled throughout this list? We've had some success with restaurants, but not as much as I would say bars. There've never been 6 Australian restaurants on the list of 100 in the world's 50 best.
Yeah, to be honest, I actually think that we could be higher. There are so many great bars here in Australia. And part of what I think makes it really special is that so many of those other bars around the world that are in that top 50, they're staffed by amazing Australians. I think it's that Australians have this natural hospitality to it. And that's so much of what makes up a great bar, is even more than the drinks in a lot of way, is the service that you get. And I think what you find when you meet Australians overseas, you kind of realize like that is our one superpower. We're fantastic hospitalitarians.
How do you describe it, Jeremy? Like, what's the characteristics of an Australian hospitalitarian?
I think for me, it comes down to actually caring about people. There's a certain amount of openness and honesty about us, especially in hospitality. I think weirdly as well, we kind of take the fun of it a bit more seriously than other people. Like we realize that it's that drinking is kind of part of the human experience, and we want to make it pretty human. I think that's kind of where Australians around the world, and why the ones that are doing so well on this world stage are there, is that they kind of understand all of those levels. They make it a show like at maybe Sammy. They talk to you about their place like at Birdie. They just make fantastic drinks like at Caretaker's Cottage. Each one of these bars just has something to say. And on top of that, they're just great places to be and great people to spend time with.
Yeah, I think that's so well said. And I love this idea of taking the fun seriously. I feel like that should be on a T-shirt. And if it was, I would definitely wear it. I think also as you're speaking, I feel like each of these bars has such an identity. Like none of them are cookie cutter. Cantina, okay, I haven't been there, but the way you describe it, it sounds like, if you found your way there, you would feel like quite special. Like it was a quite a quirky location. And small bars are always so exciting. Caretaker's Cottage, it's in such an incredible location, an old bluestone home in the grounds of a church. You really feel like you've stumbled on something. I mean, I guess along with the rest of the world now. But yeah, it is that sense of adventure that I think we really appreciate. And I feel like, with more Australian bars, I guess it's still just Melbourne and Sydney, but it sort of brings the 50 best list, I think, more into the way that it's supposed to be used, which is as a bit of a trail rather than, coming all the way to Australia just for one experience. If you're one of those people that likes to, tick off those places, you could really build a bar trip around all the Australian places that have been recognised on this list.
Absolutely, it's definitely a little bit more egalitarian than the top 50 restaurants list. You can go in and get a $22 cocktail at most of these places as well, and don't need to make a booking. So you definitely have that going for you as well if you're going to go on the trail.
Yeah, that's a really good point as well. What sort of impact does the recognition have for you when you're on a list like this?
Oh, look, it's huge. The first time we got on the list, I wouldn't say it turned the business around. We were already, it's not hard to fill up a room with 20 people in Sydney, but it made everybody just sit up and take notice of what we were doing. And to be honest, the biggest thing we noticed was that it made the guys and the girls and everybody that worked at Cantina kind of puff their chest up a bit, take what they were doing with a little bit more seriousness, understand that they were saying something important every time they went in there. I think that is really where it really changed, and that attitude kind of flowed through them into the guests that walked through there every day. It kind of started to feel more special in there. Business-wise, actually, the weird one was it wasn't the top 50 that really turned things for us there. It was one day we got in the New York Times, like 24 hours in Sydney. One of the things to do was go to Cantina OK on the list. There was about 4 things on the list, and one of them was that. And I think that it was that moment we noticed the next day. For about the next 6 months, we were just chockers with American tourists. So I do think it's funny. You don't know what is going to turn the corner for you. It's always these little strange things.
And is it good? Like, is it, unmitigatedly positive, or can it be, I don't know, feel like a little bit of a runaway train that you're sort of, running along trying to keep up with it?
I think it can be for people. I don't think we've allowed ourselves to to get trapped in that. It's not something that we chased particularly hard in the beginning. To be honest, the first time around, it was a real shock to us that we would even be considered, especially for a place like Cantina, which is so small and so quirky. For us, it was more of an affirmation that we were doing something interesting. We were doing something of note that people wanted to see. And I think rather than driving us to keep pushing things out that are the same, I think that drove, for me at least, in my weird seat as the creative director of the company, to keep doing stuff that had soul like Cantina did, because that was really what people could see every time they came in.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So, I mean, I'd love you to talk about some of the other milestones along the way, Jeremy. I mean, what's it been like to grow a bar group? Can you tell us about some of the high points and low points?
Well, yeah, absolutely. So we were very inexperienced when we opened our first bar. We were both we started with two of us, and we were both 24 when we started our company and when we opened our first bar. So we turned up for the first to construct the place with two drills and an idea of what we wanted to do, and kind of had to learn everything along the way. And that's kind of really been emblematic of our whole career, is basically learning as much as possible, stuffing things up along the way. We've almost gone bankrupt at least twice in the journey now, and Sydney's, has spent its time kind of making things difficult for us as well. We opened a nightclub within kind of 1 or 2 months of the lockout laws happening when we got here, and then spent the next kind of 6 years in the worst time ever to run a nightclub in Sydney. But somehow we managed to kind of keep going through a lot of just working ourselves. And then, most recently, we've really gotten ourselves into a groove. We've really realized what we're good at, which turns out is quite small, which is opening fun, weird little cocktail bars that have something to say. So we're pretty focused operators. We look for great little quirky places where we can make delicious drinks. Make popcorn. I know that's ridiculous, but that's kind of become a huge part of what we do. And we're slowly growing into a kind of company that is filling up with just interesting, especially young people that are coming to work for us now. When we started the company with the two of us, we didn't imagine we'd be anywhere near where we are now. We've got almost, I think, 75 people, which is crazy to even say aloud. And it just makes me happy to turn up every day and know that we've got an amazing crew of people that want to come and spend their time with us.
Yeah, it's such an amazing journey. I mean, to think about two 24-year-olds starting a business and then growing it to a place where there are 75 employees, it really does, I suppose, bring us to the topic of workplace culture, which has been a huge topic recently, particularly in licensed premises, bars particularly. How have you gone on that journey of offering a safe space for workers and customers?
Look, it has been a journey. We came right out of this kind of culture. We were embedded in that, in the masculine culture that started out in this industry 20 years ago when we started, before we worked in our own company. And we've learned so much along the way. And a lot of it has come as good, hard learning knowledge. I'm kind of spinning over my words here, but a lot of it has come by listening to the people in the realm around us and having to really humble ourselves to what people have to say. Part of that journey was that we brought in a new partner, Daisy, who's now our GM, and she has really taken the company's reins and taken us to a place that's much more open, much more accessible. We are a much more modern company now. For the last kind of 5 years, we dedicate ourselves to openness and to understanding. I think one of the big things that we're dedicated to is that we try and really listen to what our employees have to say. And if we do hear anything, we put action to our words straight away.
I mean, it's so important. And I've been on a panel with Daisy down here in Melbourne, and she's such a gun and, really strong on workplace culture and safe spaces for women. So I'm sure that does I'm sure that was a real turning point for the business. I mean, as you mentioned, you have a lot of young people that want to work with you. And I guess listening is really important, but I suppose you need structures for them to sort of tap into or become part of, where they are supported right from the beginning. Do you have a lot of systems in place that create a good place for people to learn and grow?
Well, we do. We try and make sure that we are looking after people professionally as well. So obviously that's that kind of training element. When we bring them in, we try and teach them as much as possible, and we have structured trainings throughout so they can kind of progress professionally. You know, we've got many people that have worked for us that have been here long enough that they've progressed from starting out washing glasses and then ending up as a venue manager. So we're really proud of those kind of people in our business. But now we're getting bigger, and we're having to kind of build structures that we never thought we would need before. So we're actually just about to employ an HR person to kind of start to like really build the structures more formally. But for now, we have a few different groups where we kind of meet everybody on their level. So we have, the girls kind of, I think they called it I wonder what they call it, but a group where every female employee at Mucho gets to get together once every 2 months and talk through. This goes all the way up from the management, all the way down to any body that's just started with Mucho. And we also have one of those for all of our young men as well. We found that in these groups, you kind of can meet at a place where, we have that open, honest dialogue. And we've really found these groups like engines of change in the company by being able to pay attention to what our youngest employees have to say. We're learning something new every time we come out of these. I think it's been a really huge and important part of driving our culture forward at Mucho, and it's something that we're really proud of.
Yeah, that sounds so good, because I think so often the burden of change falls on women, people who are more likely to experience discrimination. But I love that idea of that you have a group where men can air some of the issues, because really, I guess most of the behaviour change needs to happen with men. So that seems like a really fantastic initiative. I love to hear that.
Yeah, that is exactly where it came from. It came from a place of, it's now our turn to take on some of the responsibility, and it's our turn to try and make the change that, to be honest, that women have been screaming for years and years and years. And so it was probably too late, but we're here now, and we're trying to do the best we can moving forward.
I mean, is it a scary place to be, Jeremy? Like, to be the owner of a prominent bar group in Sydney? You know, is it? I know there's been a lot of tough conversations in all kinds of hospitality businesses over the past months, and that's as it should be. But is it fun? Is it scary? Like, is it a mix of all of these things?
I think anything meaningful is a mix of fun and scary. I think that part of what I was saying is, like, we're dedicated to honesty. And I think when you're dedicated to honesty, we don't have any skeletons in the closet. But it is, it is a hard question. It is a scary place to be. The bigger you get, the more control things take, the less able that people that came from our untrained background are able to take on. It's an intense time to be in the industry, but out of all of this, out of everything that's going on, we're trying to use the opportunity and take hold of it all to see what change we can make. And actually, as tough as these months have been for everybody, and dislocating and discombobulating for all of the people in the industry, I really do hope, and I know at Mucho at least, and I really do hope in the wider community that we'll be able to see some real change come out of it, and put to bed some of the old practices. And it's given us an opportunity to really draw a line in the sand, look back, and decide what was and what wasn't acceptable. Because if you don't get that opportunity, you allow these years worth of ideas and culture to continue to perpetuate, and it can normalize things that actually, when you look back and you think about it, aren't that normal. So I hope that we're all going to be able to continue to walk from this moment and know that we're building a better industry for everybody that wants to come into it.
Yeah, well, I think that's really well said. You can really only start from where you are, and put some structures in place. I think getting an HR person sounds like a great plan with 75 employees, and I hope. Yeah, I wish you all the best with growing and building the industry that the way that you think it should be for all people who are interacting with it. Let's talk about success. Like, how do you measure success, Jeremy?
Oh, look, for me personally, I'm at a point now where I feel, successful. I feel like we're running these bars at a place that I love. I was trying to explain it to somebody recently, is that really success looks for me is that I turn up to one of our venues on a Friday night and I see somebody dancing. That's I know that's a funny thing to say, but that's when I know that we've done the right thing. Somebody's in one of our spaces and is feeling so comfortable that they can let it rip a bit. That's a sign of real success for me. But at the end of it, we're still full of ideas and we come up with new stuff every day. So I can't see us resting on our laurels. I can't see us sitting still. I described it to somebody recently as like the company is the world's biggest adult fidget spinner, and I just get to keep spinning it. I'd get bored otherwise. So all of us in the office just keep churning through new stuff.
Oh, it sounds fun. So now, Jeremy, I'm late to the party when it comes to agave. I feel like I'm only just starting to understand it now, probably because of the not uncommon experience of really having a terrible time with tequila. Where do you think, so I just love to learn from you a little bit about agave. Like, where do you think it sits at the moment in the landscape in Australia? And also, are we ever going to have Australian mezcal? Is it ever going to be a thing?
Agave is in an interesting place in Australia. I think people are still super interested in learning about it. Especially on the kind of smaller scale, the stuff that we bring back for Cantina. So what we do at Cantina, and one of the reasons why it's a pretty special place, is that every year we travel to Mexico to buy tiny batches of mezcal from local producers there. And when I say local producer, I mean we drive 2, 3, 4 hours outside the main city and go and buy mezcal that's made in somebody's backyard, essentially. And we bring it back here to sell to people. And it's something that's really special. And those kind of spirits you can't try in any other context, really. They're the last real ancient spirits made in these ways that could have been made 200, 300, 400 years ago. And there's something really exciting still about trying that. So I just think there's so much energy in these that there are still a lot of people discovering all of that as well. Which also answers the other question, was like, I think that Australia will become a fantastic agave spirit producer. There are people making a delicious blue agave spirit in northern Queensland called Active Trees, and that's making really delicious blue agave spirit that has the kind of tequila profile. But I don't think Australians will ever be able to make mezcal in the way that really means that same amount, that has that really deep, long-standing connection to people and place and family that mezcal does in Mexico. We're talking, we go to producers that are the 5th generation of people making mezcal that have been doing it in the same way, in the same village, with agave that grows wild on the hill. You're not going to be able to get those same things in a place kind of separated from that culture.
Yeah, that seems a very fair statement. I mean, that is really amazing that you're driving around finding these very small producers. I mean, do you know that you're heading there, or is it just like you're just driving around the roads on spec, wondering if you're going to stumble across something?
Oh, so we do a little bit of both. So it depends on where we go. We try and visit we normally go to 2 states that we know, and then we try and go to 1 that we don't know. And we normally, in general, will have a guide. So we'll have somebody that will take us out to villages, and we'll call ahead, and we'll make sure that there'll be somebody there to pick us up. But sometimes we do exactly that. We just drive, and we've learned one tip along the way, which is like if you're driving along a river. So often, your road will end up down along a river. If you're driving along a river, keep your head out and watch out for like smoke coming out. And if there's smoke and it's running along a river, then you've got a pretty good chance that somebody will be, if it's in mezcal country, that somebody will be making mezcal there, because smoke means that they're, firing up the stills or they're roasting the agave, and the river is where they need that running water from to keep the whole machine going. So with those two things, we often will see that there. We were in Puebla, down maybe an hour and a half down this dirt track in the middle of nowhere, basically, and we saw this like ute chock-a-block full of kind of construction workers on their lunch break, kind of wobbling off out of this driveway, smoke coming out, and we knew that they were making mezcal. So we pulled up into the driveway, called down like, "Hey, what are you guys making today?" And yeah, we were able to go and meet the most amazing mezcaleros, stayed there for maybe 3 or 4 hours, helped them make some of their spirit. And then they brought us some lunch up to the distillery, and we ended up with, I think, probably 20 litres worth of some of the most amazing mezcal we've ever tried. And it was totally serendipity, like just driving past and saw this all happen. So it does happen like that as well. Sometimes we get lucky. But a lot of the time we've got these amazing guys kind of on the ground that have deep connections and networks of mezcaleros that we can go out and visit as well. So
it just sounds absolutely magical. And then I guess the puzzle is to transmit that narrative to the people that are drinking it in Sydney. I mean, I guess that's where the training comes in, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And part of what we really talk about is that we try and teach all of our team the stories. Alex, one of my business partners, he's an amazing amateur photographer. So when we're in Mexico, he takes all the photos, and we publish all of our menus with all the photos in these beautiful books as well that our designer makes. And he always says you can't take a bad photo in Mexico, and he's right. It's like it is a beautiful place, and like just all of it just looks so real in the photography there as well. But talking about mezcal in this like emotive way is something we really drill into our team at Cantina. It's something that they're amazing at. We've been calling it emotional tasting, really, which is if you don't know enough about it, it doesn't matter. Like you can just kind of, because mezcal is so complex, it's one of the most complex things we eat or drink. It's so full of kind of flavor that you can taste different things every time you go back. And you can almost always connect it to a memory that you have. So even if you've never tried a mezcal before, if you smell it and taste it and kind of let it, then you can really almost always kind of taste like a load of different things in there and connect it to something that you're feeling. I know that sounds a bit weird, but it's just because it's so chemically complex and delicious and weird that we've really talked to the guys about being able to have that conversation with people and find something that people will really enjoy.
Oh, I love that. It's really, I guess you can meet anyone with that narrative, and it's with that openness. I think that's really, really lovely, and makes me want to go out and have a mezcal flight, quick smart, and just get all over it. So, Jeremy, you gave us some advice about how to find a mezcalera in the back blocks of Mexico. But what other advice do you have for people who might be running their first small bar or might be thinking about getting into the industry? How can we learn from your experience about, what to do and perhaps what not to do?
What to do in the beginning? I think one of the big things to do in the beginning, the advice that I give a lot of people that come and ask about is to build a team of fantastic professionals around you. Like there is, and I'm not just mean the people that are going to work with you in your venue. I mean people like your lawyer and your architect and the people that are actually going to turn your dream into a reality. You don't know how much you don't know when you get started, if that makes sense. You need a lot of these kind of like wise counselors along the way. So building that kind of core professional team is a really important part of the beginning and something that you don't even know that you're going to need before you need it. But the main thing is just get stuck in. I think that's the key. Is like actually the path is laid out for you if you just start going. You know, each door will open after the last one, or at least that's how it felt to me. You know, so once you open the door to the first bar, well, that's going to open you up all the possibilities for the next one and then the next one after that. And you'll look back, what is it, 15 years later, and you'll be in your office, which you never believed that you would have. And you'll be talking on a podcast. You know, I think some of it is just about having that energy to just take that first step. So
what about identity? Because, you know, as you've spoken about, you've got, you know, very different venues and you love that creativity that brings them into being. But I think a lot of people, especially, you know, we've talked about the 50 best, like a lot of people will look at those lists, look at the bars, trying to sort of pick them apart and work out what makes them successful. And then perhaps, you know, think, well, is the right road to try to replicate them? Like, how do you think about, I guess, creativity and identity when it comes to creating bars?
what's so funny, actually, it's amazing to think about this list. The list is actually a really great example how I think every single bar on this list is so impressive, especially just to use the Australian ones as well. So impressive. I could not achieve what they've done at any of the other 4 bars on there. I look at what they've done and they're such a reflection of the people that run those places. At maybe Sammy Stefano is this like big boisterous Italian with this big boisterous energy, and there's no way I could convince my bartenders or take it seriously that we would play the song Tequila and do a dance behind the bar every night. Like, that's just not who I am. But somehow he pulls that off with authenticity and genuineness, and it's absolutely crazy. And or the precision of Luke at Birdie, or the like idiosyncrasy of Hayden at Above Board. It's funny. Each of the Australian bars, at least in this top 100, just are real deep reflections of the people that run them. And maybe that's the key lesson, is that you need to build it based on what you're interested in and what you're into. It's funny because Cantina OK, we did it so small that it was going to be low risk in a lot of ways. You know, we made it so small and we had such a narrow band of what we were ambitious about. We just really wanted to talk to people about this delicious mezcal we were buying. And we really wanted to make delicious margaritas with an ice shaver. And between those two things, like, we wanted to do them so bad that I guess people saw that and understood that this really was something important for us, and like they understood that it had meaning. So I just think, yeah, I guess, I mean, that's pretty lame advice, but, you know, it has to be something that you're interested in, something that's authentic to you.
I think it's actually such good advice, and it actually brings me back around to, you know, the top of our conversation, puzzling over this fact, like, why are there so many Australian bars on this list? I feel like, I guess, bars are discretionary, like restaurants are, of course, as well, but, you know, they're always going to dine out, and then, I don't know, maybe they'll go to a bar as well. I don't know. Restaurants, I feel like they're trying to, so many Australian restaurants look to restaurants overseas and try to bring something to the market, whereas I feel like perhaps Australian bars are able to lean more into individuality and really being an expression of something very personal to them. And I think also, as you say, like, you can do it perhaps with lower risk. You don't have to have as much infrastructure an inventory as you do if you're opening a restaurant. But I think that idea of the specificity and believing in your own identity is so important, no matter what sort of business it is.
Oh, absolutely. I think you can really, it's easy to, I always think of it, you know, when you go to a restaurant as well, and you know when you go to a great bar, you know when you go to get your hair cut, if a place has, I always just describe it as a place has soul. But it's probably easy to describe it as a place that has a point of view. You know, it's rare to go to, that's really what I look for when I go out to have a drink or eat a meal or something. I want it to have something to say. I want it to have a point of view. And yeah, and that's where I think you see real quality, and things that last have something to say like that.
Yeah, well, I'm thinking of my hairdresser, and he definitely has a point of view, and it's not for everybody, but but I love my visits. Jeremy, what do you love about what you do?
I love most things. I love the bad days too. Like there's been many along the way, and I love the people that we get to work with. I love the constant challenge. I love the never being bored. I love the problem solving. I love making delicious drinks too, obviously. Like that's a huge part of what my job is now, is making delicious drinks. But yeah, I can't complain too much. I love this job. It's the rare kind of job that allows you to be creative and also to be practical at the same time, which I think is really special.
That's very cool. What's the next drink you're going to have?
Next drink I'm going to have is a tall lager. I'm not drinking at the moment. I'm running a marathon in November, and I'm going to drink the world's largest lager after that. Probably 1.5 litres of lager in one gulp. Is
it your first marathon?
Oh, no. I've done one a few weeks ago as well. So this one is a slower one, but still I'm trying to not to run it with purpose,
Yeah, wow. Well, back-to-back marathons is very impressive.
It's a bit silly, I think, actually, it turns out. But
well, good luck with that, along with everything else. But thank you so much for chatting with us today. I think it's been such a fun conversation, but also there's lots of useful nuggets for people. And congratulations again for Cantina OK and slaying it on the 50 best list.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
This is Dirty Linen, and I'm Dani Valent. We air the issues that the hospitality industry finds hard to talk about, hearing from different people with unique perspectives. We want to hear from you as well. If you have something that needs to be said about a topic, get in touch so we can include your perspective. Contact us at dirtylinen@deepintheweeds.com.au or hit us up on Insta @Dirty Linen Podcast. We can't wait to hear from you.